Hello, my friends, and welcome back to my channel. I wanted to come on and do another shadow reading because some of you were saying that it was very refreshing and it helped you realize some things about yourself and maybe some of the people you're connected to. If you didn't watch that reading, this is a reading about our shadows. And I started the reading off yesterday by saying it's very possible that I could be explaining shadows of someone that you're connected with, whether it's a parent, a friend, a counterpart, which could help you better understand them if you understand their shadows, or it could be that these shadows are about you. If you're feeling triggered by anything, clearly, if you're feeling triggered, feel free to stop the video. Shadow work can be very triggering. And it can be hard to admit that we have these shadows. But in the end, by admitting we have them and healing from them, we turn them into light, and we actually empower ourselves. So I actually left out the cards from yesterday's reading so that we could get, so that we don't have repeating cards for today. I don't always do that, but today I felt called to do that. So if you didn't watch that reading and you want to, that one was posted on the 10th of December, and it's called a shadow reading, shadow work reading, whatever I titled it. And yeah, just a reminder, if you do feel triggered by something, that can be an indication that we are kind of poking at an unhealed wound within you, maybe one you didn't know you had. And even yesterday, even though I didn't resonate with some of the cards' titles, I found for myself that there was something in each explanation that helped me. I took something away from each card, whether it had to do with me or someone I'm connected to. So yeah, let's continue this shadow work reading. We're going to reshuffle here. We have love addict. Do you chase unavailable people because you have a fear of commitment? So you could be like, you could have a fear of commitment, or you could be dealing with someone or connected to someone who has a fear of commitment. You pursue unavailable people because you fear intimacy, don't feel you deserve love the chase, or have a need to save. Interesting. So for some of you, you could even resonate with that. Like maybe you've been someone who has felt like you need to save people or chase people. I resonate with that energy of chasing for sure. Shuffle. You could be someone who feels like you want to help other people heal. And what I've learned is you can't force anyone to heal. You can't chase anyone to heal. Healing is something that, I compare it to being an alcoholic, because I'm a recovering alcoholic, 15 years sober. But before I decided to get sober, it didn't matter what anyone else said to me. I had to be the one to make that decision. So let's shuffle one more time. We have shallow. I saw overly dramatic, so take it as it resonates. All right, and again, shadows are nothing to be ashamed of. Nothing to be ashamed of, nothing to judge yourself over, especially not if you're here with the intent of healing them. We have overly critical, so you could be overly critical, or you could be overly critical with yourself. This doesn't have to be towards other people. It could be inwardly. You could be overcritical when it comes to yourself. You could put yourself down. You could have grown up with, there was one that came out yesterday about perfectionism, and it talked about you could have grown up with an overcritical parent, so someone who always criticized you. Do you criticize others because of a perceived personal weakness? You criticize others by pointing out their weaknesses and offering solutions to non-existent problems. So you could, again, you could be someone who resonates with this, or you could be someone who's connected to someone who is overly critical. So let's have a look here. And not all of these cards will resonate probably. This is a general reading, but again, I found that I took something away from all of these cards yesterday. So, overly critical. You may be driven to criticize by a repressed and intolerable feeling that you got what you hate in others. This is called projection. Projection allows you to condemn the traits of what you find unpleasant, repulsive, or worthy of punishment. The holier-than-thou attitude begins to build up inside of you when you see others doing what you wouldn't dare. Can I just share a story with you? So, like I said, when I first flipped over this card, I wouldn't see myself as overly critical, although I know there's, people in my life who would disagree with that. But I used to be very overcritical. That is something that I'm, healing within myself. But this is making me think of just before I awakened, I would be overly critical to not people directly. So, like, it's not like I would be overly critical of my children. That is one thing I can say. I am not overly critical of my children. I have been overly critical of partners in the past, of friendships, but for me, it was mostly being overcritical with people that I would never talk to. So, like, I would sit and watch television. I'm just going to use Survivor as an example. And I would, like, be very critical of the people on Survivor. And one other thing is I would be overly critical of people who, got divorced. I would be overcritical of people who cheated on their spouses. I would be overcritical of people who, I'm just going to give you the example that I'm thinking of. It happened to me like 5 days before what I, it was 4 days before I met my counterpart, but, or 5 days, whatever. But I used to watch a comedian, and I'm just going to mention it, John Mulaney. I think that's his name. And I loved John Mulaney. Like, I thought he was great. I thought he was funny. And then one morning, I opened up Facebook or something, TikTok. I don't know what I was looking at. And I saw an article about how he had he had been with his wife, and him and his wife had decided they didn't want to have children. I think that actually she did want to have children, but he said he didn't want to. And then this article was about how he came out as an addict, and how he went, once he, the first step is admitting that you're an addict. And then he went to rehab. And then in rehab, I'm not sure if that's when he separated with his wife, but there was this story about how when he got out of rehab, he was all of a sudden dating someone else and having a baby with them. And I was so critical of him. I was like, I am never going to watch John Mulaney again. And I told anybody that would listen to me in my life how strongly I felt. And I was so critical of it. And if you know my story, it was like 5 days after that I met my counterpart, and I'm married. And I wasn't looking to meet my counterpart. I wasn't looking to awaken spiritually. It just serendipitously happened to me. But I went from, being so overly critical about people like that to then experiencing what I was being critical about, if that makes sense. yeah, this holier than thou attitude. You know, I had this holier than thou attitude about people whose marriages didn't work out and people who, you know, met other people. And little did I know that that was part of my destiny. Anyway, thank you for listening. So let's continue. That's what I mean. Like, you might find little messages from each card for yourself here. The holier than thou attitude begins to build up inside of you when you see others doing what you wouldn't dare. When you see the flaws of someone else, it causes a deep emotional pain and anxiety within yourself that causes you to criticize. This behavior has been embedded in you when you were a child, where your every move or decision was laced with criticism. So again, if you are overly critical, that could be learned behavior. That could, you know, if you grow up with an overly critical parent, you can go one of two ways. You can either grow up to be overly critical of others, or you can grow up to be a perfectionist, never feeling like you're doing good enough, you know? I actually experienced both of those. Instead of thinking criticism, think feedback. Remember, we are all different, and trying to impose your agenda or opinions on others isn't helpful or realistic. It may end up pushing people away and not allowing others to see the kinder, softer side of you. And, you know, I was talking about how some of these shadows are very subconscious. So until someone, like, you could be someone who's overly critical, but until someone says to you, hey, I think you're being a little overcritical towards me. Maybe that's not something you're realizing in yourself, if that makes sense. Anyway, thank you for listening to my little story. It's part of my channeling. So anyway, let's get it. So what shadows do we need to learn about today? I am going to take that one. So we have copycat. Do you imitate others because you believe you must copy others to be worthy of good things? So you could imitate others. You could imitate, you know, TV characters. You could copy, like if you're creative, maybe you're imitating another creative person that you follow. You imitate or adopt the behavior or practice of another because you feel you aren't good enough as yourself. I actually spent most of my childhood copying other people. I called it mirroring. I was, you know, undiagnosed autistic, and I would just kind of mimic whoever was my friend. So I can remember in 7th grade that, like, I can remember mimicking the handwriting of my friend even. I mimicked the way she dressed. I mimicked the way she wrote. You know, I copied the music that she liked, her interests, because I didn't feel good enough about myself. So that is 54, and we had 18. You might imitate others because you lack a sense of self. You don't know who you are, so being like others feels free and safe. Sometimes you want what others have, so you copy to try and get it. Sometimes it stems from a lack of self-esteem and not knowing who you are, which can cause you to try and elevate yourself by copying others you admire. And at other times, you copy to conform and to feel accepted by others, limiting your own individuality. While it's flattering to be admired, being copied can often feel like theft to the other person being copied. It can often almost feel like a person is trying to take away or rob others of their own uniqueness, which can anger another. Take some you time to rewrite your story and get connected again. Ask yourself these questions. Number 1, who was I? Number 2, who am I now? Number 3, why do I choose to do what I do now? Number 4, what can I bring to the table that is uniquely me? Take some time to think about how you differentiate yourself by listing the qualities that make you distinctive. And remember, you have special qualities that you can bring to the table. And this is on page 111, and I don't know if anybody caught it, but the reading I did yesterday was 1 hour and 11 seconds. So 111. Anyway. So it's interesting because they say that what goes around comes around. And with that story of like being so overly critical with others when it came to marriage with me, what goes around comes around, because that came around back to me. With this copycat, I was telling you that in 7th grade, I have memories of copying my best friend. And I did this all through high school. I would mimic whoever was my friend. And again, what goes around comes around. When I was a photographer, I had someone who was copying me. It was horrible. And I felt like this talked about, it can feel like theft to the person being copied. It can feel like a person is trying to take away or rob others of their own uniqueness. And I felt all of that. And that just makes me think of karma. Again, what goes around comes around. So it's interesting to see this energy coming out for me. I'm finding it interesting. So let's keep going. And again, these don't have to be your shadows. You know, if they're not your shadows, don't take them. But it could be that, you know, this sounds like someone you know. So we have egotistical. Do you pretend to be confident to cover up deep feelings of inadequacy? And I always say in my love readings, sometimes the people who look and present the most self-absorbed are the ones with the lowest self-esteem. You have an exaggerated sense of self due to wanting to match someone else's perceived qualities. So, you know, maybe you're connected to someone who you feel is egotistical. Your overinflated ego may result from an inferiority, is that how you say it? Complex resulting from childhood. You've learned to compare yourself to others by your parents and felt you could never measure up or could never fail. You were either overly praised or made to feel inadequate. Therefore, you began to see yourself as separate from others instead of being an extension of others' energy. This has not cultivated a healthy outlook of yourself when you compare yourself to others and has harmed personal relationships with others. Shift your mindset from external validation to internal fulfillment. Embrace the journey of personal growth and measure success by your own standards, not external comparisons. Recognize that true confidence comes from acknowledging both strengths and areas for improvement. By understanding your authentic motivations and appreciating the value you bring, you can break free from the cycle of an overinflated ego and foster healthier relationships based on genuine connection and mutual respect. All right, let's keep going. We have Deceptive. Do you harm others to get something you want and to protect or promote yourself? You lead others to believe something other than the truth in order to protect yourself. You behave in a dishonest way. And again, what you'll see from all of these cards, these shadow cards, is that most of it is learned behavior. Most of it is something that is a result of how we were raised. It is natural to lie, but when it turns into something more harmful, it can be detrimental to yourself and others. You may find yourself lying to your partner or friends in order to protect yourself from their opinions of you, or as a way to prevent uncomfortable conversations. Have you purposely deceived others in order to get your way and avoid any form of punishment you think was coming towards you? This is your way of self-protection, and you have learned from an early age that honesty may not always be the best policy. Maybe you've seen others getting away with it, or maybe you realized it was better to lie instead of being punished or mistreated for being honest. Either way, determine the reason why you feel being deceptive is acceptable and ask yourself if this behavior is blocking you from positive changes in your life. You know, someone who is very close to me lies about everything because of the way she was raised. And I wouldn't say that her lies are harmful, but I know that it comes from a place of the fact that when she was honest as a child, she was punished and she had bad things happen when she was honest. So growing up and leading into adulthood, she, you know, learned to lie about everything. And like I said, a lot of it's not hurtful lies. A lot of it is unnecessary, but that's learned behavior to keep herself safe, because when she was growing up, those lies resulted in punishment. Or her honesty resulted in punishment, or her honesty resulted in trauma. Anyway, I'll just, you know, I'm talking about my own upbringing and I'm talking about my sibling. And we were both raised in the same household. And like I said, with situations like this, and you'll see it in this shadow deck, it talks about you could have been raised like that overly critical one, or the egotistical one. You could have been raised by either a parent who said nothing you ever did was good enough, or a parent that told you that everything you did was freaking amazing. What was my point? My point was you can go through this experience and come out one out of two ways. Like I was talking about what was I talking about? I can't remember what I was talking about, but I'll use lying as an example. Like my sister and I were raised in the same household. We were punished for being honest. And that can manifest in different ways as an adult. Like in her, it manifested in lying about pointless things to keep herself safe. Again, not hurtful lies. For me, it manifested in I am unable to lie. Like I have a really hard time lying. I lied for a small period when I went through, like, when I was a teenager, I went through a very small period where I lied about a lot of stuff. And as an adult, I'm very uncomfortable with lying. I'm very uncomfortable with it. Anyway, so take it as it resonates. Again, the last thing I want to do is trigger you. The last thing I want to do is trigger you. Now we have clingy, guilty. Guilty. Do you fear repeating past hurts and try to prevent them through constant closeness? Ooh, I feel so attacked right now. You become emotionally connected or dependent, codependency, relatively quickly, which can be overwhelming or suffocating to others. And that clingy energy can be, like, you could resonate with, you know, when I talk about Queen of Cups in my readings and I talk about how the Queen of Cups can overgive, you could resonate with that. So yeah, definitely I feel guilty of this one. Guilty. Clingy, your need for constant reassurance. Yep. I'm working on it. Your need for constant reassurance and contact may be rooted in your insecurity or fear of abandonment. You may doubt your attachment figures, love, and commitment. You often have a heightened sense of fear of losing your attachment figure, so you believe without constant contact, the relationship will deteriorate. Oh my gosh, I feel so attacked right now. You may feel unworthy of love or attention, and clinging to someone can be a way to compensate for feelings of inadequacy. However, this can result in a lack of autonomy and self-sufficiency, leading you to rely on others for emotional stability. You often seek validation as a way to feel valued and worthy, lessening the fear of being rejected by others. This can create codependency in the relationship, where your worth and identity is tied to another, and you may end up prioritizing the needs and desires of another to an unhealthy degree. Clinginess can strain relationships because it may be perceived as emotionally draining, suffocating, or controlling by others. Over time, this has led to conflicts and relationship dissatisfaction. You can begin by reflecting on your clingy behavior, by recognizing it and being more open to communication about your feelings, and ultimately seeking support to develop healthier attachment styles and relationship dynamics. So, if you resonate with that one, you are not alone. That's also a very common energy that if you're, a divine feminine, that codependency can be something that feminines have to heal within themselves. We have serial cheater. So you could, I don't know if you're a serial cheater, but you could attract serial cheaters. Maybe there is someone in your life that is a serial cheater. Maybe you witnessed one of your parents being a serial cheater. Take it as it resonates. Do you use partners to feel loved and admired to continually prove to yourself that you are above them? You have an avoidant attachment. So it's interesting because I just mentioned codependent attachment here. And I was hearing divine feminine. And oftentimes the masculine can deal with avoidant attachment. So you have an avoidant attachment style and you feel love is invasive, harmful, and overwhelming. Again, that might not be you. You could be nodding your head right now because someone you know is a serial cheater. You may use others to feel loved, admired, and enjoy the act of falling in love. You have a fear of intimacy, commitment, or long-term relationships. You seek validation, affirmation from multiple partners, and you get off on being attractive to others. Your lack of self-esteem drives you to rely on external validation to feel good about yourself. You may also get a kick out of cheating due to the secrecy and risk of your behavior without thinking of the consequences. Your fear of abandonment motivates you to seek out backup relationships to mitigate the fear of being left out in the cold. So this could be, when I do love readings, I talk about, how some people who are avoidant, when they break up, instead of looking at themselves and healing, they just immediately go out and get into a relationship with someone else. That's what this card is reminding me of. Past experiences, especially in childhood, have influenced your relationships. You were either neglected, traumatized, or abandoned when you were a child. You have rationalized your behavior and even blamed your partner for your indiscretions, and over time you have become desensitized to the impact of your actions. If you want to overcome your fears of intimacy, you should delve into your fears of abandonment and your internal sense of self-worth. Begin by working on your identity, your self-esteem, and reflect on the root causes of your motivation to cheat. So let's keep going. I'm just going to get 2 rows. We have projection. Do you unconsciously take unwanted emotions or characteristics you don't like about yourself and attribute them to someone else? You project your own mental state and traits onto others, traits that they do not possess, in order to feel good about yourself. 64. You may engage in projection as a means to conceal your negative traits, driven by a desire to maintain a positive image for yourself and others. By shifting blame onto others, you position yourself as the hero and evade acknowledging your own flaws, protecting your ego in the process. Projection can manifest as either a conscious manipulation or an unconscious response rooted in past traumas. This behavior often leads to unjust blaming, overreacting, and adopting a victim mentality, fueled by a distorted perception of reality. To address this pattern, it's important to question the origins of your thoughts and reactions, considering the underlying motivations. Additionally, recognizing your personal agency and prioritizing clear, constructive communication can help navigate challenging situations more effectively. So take it as it resonates, my friend. All right, so let's keep going. We're going to get one more row of cards. We have imposter syndrome, and you know, I'm not making excuses, but people who are neurodivergent, people who specifically, I'm hearing ADHD, can really struggle with imposter syndrome. Do you find yourself questioning your own abilities or feel you might be perceived as an imposter despite evidence of your competence? You harbor persistent feelings of inadequacy and you fear being exposed as a fraud. Guilty! Me, guilty. Again, I've been working for years on my shadows. It's never ending, my friends, never ending. Doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. You might hold exceptionally high standards for yourself, achieving success, yet feeling like you fall short of unrealistic expectations. Attributing success to external factors instead of acknowledging your own competence can lead to imposter feelings. A deep-seated fear of failure, driven by a perfectionist mindset, and Perfectionist came out yesterday. So if you didn't watch that and you want to hear perfectionism, and I think codependency came out as well, that reading I posted yesterday. Where was I? A deep-seated fear of failure driven by a perfectionist mindset makes it challenging to accept anything less than a flawless performance. The perfectionist trait amplifies self-doubt and hinders the internalization of achievements. Constant comparison, so you could be, I think, one of these cards mentioned comparison to others. Constant comparison to others can intensify feelings of inadequacy, eroding self-confidence despite external evidence of competence. And I always tell people, don't play the comparison game. Like, don't compare yourself to someone else. The only person you should be comparing yourself to is you and the past version of yourself. Very important. To address these feelings, consider fostering self-awareness, challenging negative thought patterns, and embracing realistic, compassionate views of your capabilities. Avoid undermining yourself based on internalized fears or comparison of others. And, you know, I'll just use a really easy one for an example. When I was thinking about starting my own channel, I would look at readers and compare myself to them. And I'd be like, well, I don't know enough. I don't know what they know, so I shouldn't be doing this. I'm an imposter. When in reality, they've been reading tarot. They've had their channel for like 5+ years. I have no business comparing myself as a newbie to someone who's been doing this for 5 years, because of course I'm not going to have achieved what they've achieved because we're on different paths. So again, the only person you should be comparing yourself to is you. I just heard something about a third party too. Like if you're in a connection and your person is with a third party or left you for someone else, or, you know, maybe you were dealing with a serial cheater who instead of healing after a breakup just jumped into another connection, you could struggle with comparing yourself to that person. And that's a losing game is what I'm hearing. Anyway, let's continue on. We have Hotheaded. Guilty. Is your ability to communicate affected by the way you react? Oh dear. You experience emotional outbursts with little provocation. Anyway. I have a parent who's a hothead, and yes, I inherited that reactiveness. And, you know, it was actually when I became hot-headed for the first time with my children is when it only happened once. And in that moment, I was like, it's time for me to go to therapy now and start healing. And that's, you know, how my healing journey started, because I became very hot-headed with my children, who at the time were very young. And to see their reaction of me being so reactive with them, it like transported me back to my childhood and my own relationship with my father. And I thought, I don't want to be this person. I don't want to be, you know, this reactive person. And I'm still dealing with, you know, I still deal with my reactions, or still trying to heal them, I should say. So, listen to this. You may have grown up watching someone close to you use anger regularly as a way of coping with life. Guilty. The belief instilled in you was that anger equals results, and that standing up for yourself requires responding in an aggressive way. As a child, you were either defensive or defenseless, bottling up your emotions until you couldn't hold it in any longer. Guilty. So when you bottle up emotions, because in my house we weren't allowed to talk about our emotions, so all we could do was bottle them up. When you bottle them up, imagine a can of pop, you know, and every time you bottle something up, you're shaking that can of pop. Every time you bottle something up. And then it can just take the teeniest little thing to make you explode and become reactive. Again, I'm hearing neurodivergency. People with ADHD can, you know, I used to refer to it as ADHD rage. And, you know, there's thousands of people who make content about this kind of stuff, like, you know, how you bottle things up and then all of a sudden you're walking through your house and your sweater catches on a door handle and you lose your crap. Like you have this rage within you over something so small, you know? Anyway, the traumas and prolonged stress throughout your life have made you more reactive and defensive. Recognizing what triggers you is the most important step. Reflect on your memories and how these events have made you feel. Practice taking deep breaths before responding, and always remember that it's not what happens to you, but how you respond that truly matters. Choose a path of thoughtful response rather than reactive aggression to foster healthier relationships and emotional well-being. And again, I'm hoping that my vulnerability with my own shadows in this reading helps you be comfortable being vulnerable with yours. Because like I said, in every card we've read, what does it say? It stems from childhood. It's not your fault. And we have slow moving. Are your fears of making mistakes due to wanting to appear perfect? We've got a lot of perfectionists here. To others slowing you down. You fear making decisions that could impact your life in a negative way, but you end up staying stuck. So you could be someone who's very slow moving. You could be dealing with someone very slow moving is what I'm hearing. I just did a love reading about the love interest. White truck, sign. The white, like seriously, the white truck drove by in that reading as well. That was a different white truck, I believe. But white pickup truck. You could be dealing with someone who drives a white pickup truck who's very slow moving. Anyway, the love interest came out as someone very slow moving, someone who drags their feet. Anyway. You may be feeling everything you do must be just right and nothing can be left to chance. Your cautious nature, often focused on small details, might lead to hesitation in decision making, causing you to feel stuck in life. What is causing you to move at a snail's pace? Were you chastised as a child for making a mistake? Were you made to feel less than when your decision didn't go as planned, thus creating traumatic events? It's crucial to learn to trust yourself and the process, understanding that every mistake is a valuable lesson that contributes to developing your strength, character, and outlook on life. Embrace imperfection as a natural part of growth and self-discovery. And guess what? Nobody's perfect. And anybody who tells you they're perfect is lying. Because nobody's perfect. We're all imperfect creatures. All right, so let's keep going. We need 4 more. We have Steele's Limelight. This is not one that I have a problem with. I am not somebody who likes the spotlight, which is funny because I have a YouTube channel. Oh, I hate the spotlight. But there are people who, you know, do steal the limelight. Do you have a strong desire to be the best or most recognized due to feeling inferior to others? You have a strong desire to be noticed by others, therefore you try to outshine others at every opportunity. Interesting. Again, not one that I resonate with, but maybe you do. We have materialistic. Do you measure your success by the quantity and price of the materials you buy to help you cope with your inner feelings of discomfort? You buy your way to happiness and think wealth is the path to permanent fulfillment and well-being. And while I can't say that I've ever felt like someone who's been materialistic, I did struggle with feeling like if I wasn't working, I wasn't, you know, contributing. I wasn't, like, I was raised to believe if you aren't working, you're not making a difference. If you're not working, you're being lazy. So for me, I was a bit of a workaholic. I'm not anymore. But I used to live, breathe, eat, sleep, work all the time. Especially before I had children, it was like all I did was work, work, work. I'm hearing a movie. I can't figure out what movie it is, but I'm hearing it. Oh well, I'm going to move on. I think it's The Princess Bride. I think I'm hearing The Princess Bride. That could be symbolic. Yeah, definitely. Princess Bride. That's what I was hearing. You may have had to deal with your feelings not being met when you were a child. You felt a strong desire for connection, love, or affirmation, but you may have been ignored, neglected, or made to feel as if your feelings didn't matter. Or you had been brought up in a household where you were praised and consistently fawned over by others. This constant attention causes you to keep wanting more of it, and when the spotlight doesn't shine on you, you begin to doubt your self-worth or your sense of self. You believe you are special and deserving of attention. Stealing the limelight has served as a coping mechanism for you to deal with stress, anxiety, or emotional challenges. Being the center of attention temporarily distracts you from your problems and helps you boost your self-esteem. Start by reflecting on why you feel the need to steal the limelight. Work on building your self-esteem and self-acceptance by understanding your worth is not solely determined by external validation or attention by others. Consider how your behavior affects others and practice active listening by giving others a chance to shine. And materialistic. You may seek external validation and self-worth through acquisition of material goods because you believe having expensive or prestigious possessions will earn you respect and admiration from others. This stems from a desire to compare yourself to others and compete for status. You may engage in conspicuous consumption to outdo your peers and maintain a certain social image. You've been taught through personal experiences and societal influences that material wealth equals happiness and success. You may also have a fear of scarcity or feel like you don't have enough, so you splurge in order to protect yourself from potential future needs. The pursuit of material goods can also serve as a distraction from negative emotions, and acquiring possessions can can provide temporary relief from stress or sadness. Reevaluate your values. I don't know why, but I'm seeing the book in my mind. I went through a brief period in my life where I read. It was like a hyperfixation, hello ADHD, where I became hyperfixated on reading books, and it lasted, like 5 months or something. But this is making me think of the Shopaholic series by Sophie Kinsella. If anybody knows what I'm talking about, high five. But I needed to mention it. The pursuit of material goods can also serve as a distraction from negative emotions, and acquiring possessions can provide temporary relief from stress or sadness. Reevaluate your values, reassess priorities, and seek sources of fulfillment that go beyond material possessions, such as personal growth, meaningful relationships, and experiences. Remember, you are more than your stuff. And now I'm thinking of a movie that probably very few of you know what I'm talking about, but it's a movie with Jimmy Stewart from It's a Wonderful Life. And it actually has a lot of the same actors that were in It's a Wonderful Life in it. And it's called You Can't Take It With You. And you can't take any of this stuff with you when you pass away and move on to your next lifetime or whatever happens, after you pass away. You can't take it with you. Interesting. A couple movies coming out all of a sudden. And books. So let's keep going. 2 more. Well, that's 3. So I'm going to take these 2. Because those are the first 2 that I grabbed and saw. I didn't even see what the other one was. Possessive. Do you hold on tight to prove your worth, or is it your fear of abandonment? You demand someone's attention and love without consideration of their own time and emotions. Denialist. Do you ignore reality as a way to avoid psychologically uncomfortable truth? To avoid a psychologically uncomfortable truth. You deny the experienced truth or validity of something despite proof or strong evidence that it is real, true, or valid. So 13. You may have difficulty taking responsibility for your own feelings of safety and self-worth. Instead, you make your partners responsible for making you feel secure, loved, and wanted. Guilty, 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 guilty. Oh my gosh, guilty. No matter how much your partner tries to make you feel safe, you will feel unsure. You question their loyalty and their love, becoming accusatory and possessive. You end up abandoning yourself and ignore your feelings because you make your partner responsible for your self-worth. And that comes, I haven't even read the rest of this, but this is something I experienced in my marriage because I lacked self-love. I lacked self-worth. So I was always looking at my husband to make me feel loved and wanted. And then I would get, mad at him if I didn't feel that way, which had nothing to do with him or what he was doing and had everything to do with the fact that I needed to heal myself. You may have watched adults around you use control, manipulation, and guilt to get what they want out of you and others. You were taught this behavior was normal and therefore continued this into adulthood. You may have also felt neglected as a child because you weren't provided with enough emotional support, and as an adult, you crave that attention by holding others responsible for your well-being. You must learn to love your true self and examine all the qualities that you've struggled with. Find qualities that you love about yourself and find things you can enjoy on your own. Try not to allow your past views on relationships to define you or to hold you back from a true loving relationship and from truly loving yourself. And we have denialist. Denial is a defense mechanism that involves ignoring the reality of the situation to avoid anxiety or stress. You may have used this mechanism time and time again to cope with stressful feelings. You may not want to acknowledge reality and may even deny the consequences of that reality. This prevents you from facing a problem or making a needed change and it can prevent you from accepting help or getting the treatment that you need. Learn to recognize and identify defense. Some of you could be in denial about your shadows, you know? Where was I? Learn to recognize and identify defense mechanisms to help improve your self-awareness and to understand your own behavior. Think about why you are afraid to face the problem and consider the consequences of not dealing with it. Talk to a close friend or loved one who may be able to offer some honest, more objective perspective, and work on identifying the why can't I speak? And work on identifying the distorted thoughts that might be adding to your anxiety. So I used this deck yesterday, which I'll just take away the 2 cards that we had yesterday. It's called Soul Mirror, See Yourself, and we'll see what comes out. I'm just going to get 2 of these today, just for some added advice or guidance. And we will cut the deck. We have Teaching. Interesting. So let's see what comes out. We have Transformation and Communication. And Growth on the bottom. So, Transformation, repressed, activated. Oh, there's a card about shadow work. This is a time of deep transformation and cellular level soul activation. Your body may feel unsteady and your mind confused and your spirit distanced. Take care of yourself and trust the process. The world eagerly awaits your rebirth, and know that the universe is conspiring in your favor. You are the universe. Allow time to rest, recuperate, and surrender to this process, even though it may feel difficult. Give yourself grace and nurture yourself during this time of important growth. Allow any fears to pass through and slip away. They will certainly pass with your love and understanding. They will shift with ease because you honor who you are becoming. You will experience life as though through a new filter. Your senses will be heightened. Your perspective will have changed. Your relationships may shift, and the world around you will be different to how you once saw it. See this as a blessing and an indication of how much progress you've made towards your true self and everything you have to offer. The world is waiting for you. In what ways have you already noticed shifts in your perspective, relationships, or how you perceive the world around you? How can you create space for rest and self-compassion as you move through this transformative process? What are some signs that you are making progress towards embracing your true self? And look at the little butterfly wings growing. And then we have Communication. Embrace the beauty of clear communication. Let your inner being shine through in all that you do. Communicate with honesty and clarity, knowing that this reflection of your true self will attract prosperity, health, and enlightenment. Your communication is the outer projection of your inner being. It is where we externally transfer the energy of our thoughts and feelings out into the universe. It is important to reflect on our emotions with complete honesty, because that process will be reflected in the world through our expression and communication. When you deny your true feelings, this denial is expressed and then met outside of you with confusion and misunderstanding. You are essentially suppressing and stalling your wants, needs, and true self by holding back your truth. Withholding a part of yourself can create disharmony in the physical body and disease in the long term. Your body reflects the call of your heart and tries to pass it on to your brain. Listen and honor this communication and be grateful for its guidance. Our bodies are immaculate and perfect vessels, tuned delicately to all parts of our being. Together with our bodies, minds, spirits, and environments constantly, no, let me say that again. Together with our bodies, our minds, spirits, and environments constantly work to reflect information to us about our well-being and guide us on our true path. Act on the signals your body and surroundings are communicating to you to foster inner growth, spiritual abundance, and well-being. Your reflection. What is it that I need to understand within myself to communicate my needs? How can I effectively communicate my needs and desires to others and freely express myself in a way that feels authentic and true to who I am? And I know I didn't pull the card, but my guides are telling me to read the shadow work one. Clear your energetic threads to uncover a boundless wellspring of love and connect to the larger experience of life around you. Shadow exploration may be a rocky path, yet it is a courageous act of self-honoring and affirmation. By walking this path in this momentous time, you hold the power to bring about a radiant and loving world. And we see this person looking at their shadows in the mirror. Looking inward to your inner being is the most important work you can do in this lifetime. On a singular level, we are here to help clear the threads of our own energetic being and remember the deep seed of love hidden within us all. Then this connects with the co-created life around us, a combined and shared experience, the outer world. Shadow work might be confronting at first as you come face to face with whatever is trying to take you away from your true inner being. You will face things that have hurt you in this lifetime or ones before, anything that blocks you from living your highest being. However, in doing the work, not only do you honor yourself in this lifetime, you honor life and love, past and present, and everything that is possible for everyone in the world to experience. Innately, you know that a beautiful, bright, and loving world is possible. You also know that you too need to take responsibility for your part in it. This is the first step. This is an important time in the evolution of our consciousness because collectively we are becoming awakened and strengthened to do the work. Remember, you are eternally supported, guided, and held with love, for it is love that made you see the shadows in the first place. You are held and supported by a loving force that has guided you to this place, and that will continue to sustain you as you take steps towards your higher self. Reflection. What wounds from my past or present are preventing me from fully expressing my authentic self and connecting with divine love, externally and within? How do I take responsibility for my thoughts, emotions, and actions in shaping the reality I co-create? What is my ultimate vision for a world filled with love and light? And, I'm going to get one more card. This may or may not resonate. I'm grabbing this deck kind of randomly. It's called the Oracle of Pluto. And on it, you see shadow animals. So I just want to grab one card for you to see what your advice is. Again, you may or may not resonate with this one card. I'm kind of like randomly grabbing it, but we'll see. And I'm yawning. So we're going to shuffle one out. So what does this collective need to hear when it comes to their shadows? And we're just going to get one. There it is, right on top of the book. We have squirrel. ADHD could be a thing here because I've mentioned ADHD so many times. And the squirrel definitely makes me think of ADHD. It makes me think of the dog, and I'll never watch Up again. I mentioned the movie Up yesterday in a reading, but there was a dog in that movie that would like constantly become distracted. And so he'd be like mid-sentence or listening to someone, and all of a sudden, squirrel. And he'd totally lose his train of thought. The book is upside down. That's not a good way to start. So we have squirrel. These are not in alphabetical order, so sometimes it takes me a while to find them. If you have like laser sharp vision and you see it, tell me. Squirrel, 63. Squirrel. Squirrel, squirrel, squirrel. Work-life balance, planning for a future. It's funny because I talked about being addicted to work at one point in my life. The fluffy-tailed squirrel is a busybody, constantly climbing, running around, exploring. Look, I'm making up words now. Exploring and foraging. Exploring. Exploring. Oh, I almost did it again. Exploring and foraging for food. As the season begins to turn into the latter half of the year in the northern hemisphere, the active squirrel prepares for winter by burying seeds and nuts in the ground for later. Whenever squirrel energy is present, make no mistake, you are being asked to look ahead on your journey and plan accordingly. Do you have all of your ducks in a row? Or, in this case, a sufficient supply of food stored for the long journey ahead? You need a plan, and a solid one, depending on your personality. Creating a plan may or may not feel daunting, but whatever you're trying to accomplish requires attention to detail and great foresight. Take the time to write out your plan, step by step, to have an adequate solution and some structure that will benefit you later. It's typically better to be over-prepared than under-prepared. You'll thank yourself later. The squirrel card may also bring to light the idea of work-life balance. All work and no play, as they say. Check in with yourself and see where your priorities are. Is there something that is sucking up too much of your time and attention? How can you free up some time, space, and energy to give attention to the other things in your life? Remember that work is only one slice of the pie. So, I mentioned struggling with being addicted to work. So maybe for some of you that resonates. Again, in my family, if you weren't working, you were just a waste of space. And I can remember, just a little side story, I can remember that coming out in me in some of my jobs, and people didn't like me very much because I would be that person, if you've got time to stand there and do nothing, you've got time to work. I was always, because I was like a workaholic and I didn't believe in slacking at all, I was always someone who was put into a supervisor type role because I didn't allow anybody around me to slack off either. And I'm sure those people hated me. I'm sure those people hated working with me. I can almost guarantee it. Anyway, again, I was definitely that person. If you've got time to lean, you've got time to clean. So, I'm going to leave it here, my friends, but thank you for joining me for another shadow reading. Again, if you like it, I'll do another one. And for now, I'm going to say goodbye, but I'm sending you lots of love and light, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.